Do you remember the last normal week of your life? A week that felt slow enough to fully experience while it was happening. Most people don't. Modern life moves too fast now. Days blur together. Conversations disappear almost instantly. Months pass before the mind fully realizes they happened at all. And eventually, people begin feeling like nothing truly stays anymore. Not moments, not emotions, not relationships. Everything feels temporary somehow, because modern life changed the human experience of time itself. For most of human history, life moved slowly enough for people to emotionally absorb it fully. Seasons felt longer, memories felt heavier, ordinary moments had time to settle inside the mind. But now, attention moves constantly, from screens to notifications to stress to endless stimulation every hour of the day. And maybe that's why so many people quietly feel disconnected from their own lives now. Because the modern mind rarely stays present long enough to fully hold onto anything anymore. One of the strangest parts of modern life is how quickly everything disappears emotionally now. Days pass quickly, conversations fade quickly. Even meaningful moments sometimes vanish from memory faster than they should. And many people quietly feel disturbed by that feeling. Like life itself is becoming harder to emotionally hold on to. Because the human brain experiences time through attention. The deeper attention feels, the more emotionally real a moment becomes. But modern attention became fragmented constantly, pulled between screens, notifications, stress, entertainment, endless stimulation every hour of the day. And eventually, the brain stops fully absorbing experiences deeply enough to emotionally remember them later. That's why so many recent years feel blurry now. One month blends into another. One season disappears into the next. People struggle to remember what they even did a few weeks ago. Not because life became empty, but because the mind rarely stays fully present long enough to emotionally anchor moments anymore. Everything moves too quickly. People consume more information in a single day than older generations consumed in weeks. And the nervous system quietly becomes overwhelmed by that speed. Attention keeps shifting constantly, from one app to another, one thought to another, one distraction to another. The brain never settles fully into the present moment. And maybe that's why nostalgia feels emotionally stronger now, because older memories often feel slower, heavier, more complete somehow. People remember childhood summers more vividly, old conversations more vividly, simple moments more vividly. Not because the past was perfect, but because attention once moved slowly enough to fully experience those moments while they were happening. Modern life rarely allows that anymore. Now, even entertainment feels temporary. People finish shows and instantly move to the next one. Songs trend for a week before disappearing. Conversations vanish into endless message histories. Nothing emotionally lingers for very long. And over time, the brain quietly begins expecting impermanence everywhere. That changes human emotion more deeply than most people realize. Because human beings psychologically need continuity, moments that feel grounded, experiences that emotionally settle inside memory, relationships that feel stable enough to fully exist inside. But modern life keeps interrupting emotional continuity constantly, and eventually, people begin feeling detached from time itself. Like life is passing too quickly to fully experience while it's still happening. Like moments disappear before the mind can fully live inside them. And maybe that's why so many people secretly feel emotionally disconnected now. Because modern life became fast enough that the human mind no longer fully feels present inside its own experiences anymore. Modern life doesn't allow things to emotionally stay for very long anymore. Everything gets replaced quickly. Songs, trends, conversations, relationships, even entire versions of people disappear quietly over time. And maybe that's why so many people feel emotionally detached from modern life now. Because the brain no longer expects permanence. It expects movement, constant movement, the next update, the next trend, the next distraction, the next version of everything. And eventually, the nervous system begins treating experiences as temporary before they even fully happen. That changes the way people emotionally connect with life itself. People struggle to stay attached to moments, to places, to each other, because modern culture keeps teaching the brain that everything is replaceable. Apps disappear, communities disappear, conversations disappear. People enter each other's lives quickly and leave just as quickly. Nothing feels stable for very long. And after enough time, the human mind quietly adapts to impermanence emotionally. That's why many modern relationships feel strangely fragile now. Not always because people stop caring, but because life itself became unstable emotionally. Attention shifts constantly. People move constantly. Communication changes constantly. Everything feels temporary enough that the brain becomes afraid to emotionally settle fully into anything. And maybe that's why nostalgia feels emotionally painful sometimes. Because older memories often feel slower, more grounded, more emotionally complete. People remember times when songs lasted longer emotionally, when friendships felt more stable, when moments were experienced more deeply instead of consumed quickly, before modern life became endless motion. Now, even happiness feels temporary. People look forward to moments, experience them briefly, then immediately move on mentally to the next thing. Vacations end quickly. Weekends disappear quickly. Entire years feel unfinished somehow. Because the modern brain rarely pauses long enough to emotionally process experiences before new stimulation arrives again. And eventually, people begin feeling disconnected from the present moment itself. Like life keeps moving past them too quickly to fully hold on to. Like memories are disappearing faster than they can emotionally experience them. And maybe that's why modern life sometimes feels strangely unreal, because the human mind was never designed to experience this much speed, this much stimulation, and this much emotional impermanence all at once. Maybe the strangest part about modern life is how many people no longer feel fully inside their own experiences anymore. Life keeps happening, days keep moving, conversations keep passing, but emotionally, many people feel slightly distant from everything while it happens. Like part of the mind is always somewhere else, thinking ahead, remembering something, checking something, waiting for the next distraction. And eventually, the present moment itself starts feeling weaker somehow. That changes human emotion more deeply than most people realize. Because human beings experience life through attention. And attention became fragmented constantly. Modern people rarely do one thing fully anymore. They eat while scrolling, listen while distracted, watch shows while checking notifications. Even rest became divided attention. The nervous system almost never fully settles into one moment completely. And over time, life begins feeling emotionally flatter because of that. Not necessarily sad, just distant. Like moments are happening too quickly and too partially to fully leave emotional impact behind. That's why many people struggle to remember recent periods of life clearly. Entire months disappear in a blur. Conversations disappear emotionally. Experiences fade unusually fast because the brain remembers presence more than activity. And modern life keeps pulling presence away every few seconds. Everything competes for attention now. Apps compete for attention. Algorithms compete for attention. Stress competes for attention. Even people compete for attention constantly. And eventually, the mind becomes too overstimulated to fully absorb life deeply anymore. That's emotionally exhausting because human beings still crave experiences that feel grounded, moments that feel emotionally real enough to stay inside memory. But modern life keeps interrupting emotional continuity constantly. That's why some older memories feel strangely more alive than recent ones. A quiet afternoon years ago, a conversation during childhood, rain outside a familiar window, small moments the brain had enough stillness to fully experience while they were happening. And maybe that's what modern people secretly miss most now. Not the past itself, but the feeling of fully existing inside moments before life became this fast, before attention became fragmented, before every experience started competing against endless stimulation all at once. And maybe that's why so many people quietly feel disconnected now, because modern life taught the brain how to constantly consume experiences without fully living inside them anymore. Maybe human beings were never meant to experience life this quickly. Not emotionally. The mind still wants what it always wanted. Stillness, presence, moments that feel slow enough to fully exist inside. But modern life keeps moving. Faster conversations, faster entertainment, faster relationships, faster days. And eventually, people stop noticing how much of life they're emotionally missing while rushing through it. Maybe that's why certain memories still feel strangely heavy years later. A late night conversation, rain against the window, a quiet walk home, small moments the brain had enough silence to fully absorb while they were happening. Moments that stayed, because attention stayed with them long enough to make them real. And maybe that's what modern people quietly miss now. Not just slower life, but slower feelings, experiences that had time to emotionally settle inside the mind before disappearing. Because now, everything moves so quickly. Songs disappear, seasons disappear, people disappear from each other's lives quietly, and entire years begin feeling emotionally unfinished somehow. Maybe that's why nostalgia feels stronger than ever now. Because part of the human mind is still searching for moments that feel real enough to hold on to. Moments that don't immediately disappear beneath noise and distraction. Moments that feel lived, not consumed. And maybe that's why quiet nights feel emotionally different sometimes. Because for a few brief moments, life finally slows down enough for the mind to notice how quickly everything has been passing by. The city becomes quieter. The screens become dimmer. The world stops moving quite as fast. And for a moment, the mind finally feels still enough to catch up with itself again. Not completely, just enough to notice the silence underneath everything for a while.